lascio a voi. Io ho altro da fare del mio tempo, nel sorriso di un figlio rivedrai la felicità, e tutti i tuoi sbagli ripercorri, ma sai gli sbagli sono umani, gli sbagli sono umani. C'è chi perde, chi mai giocherà, chi nelle tante menzogne trova la propria verità. Siamo nel baratro, in questo mondo che va giù, dove siamo arrivati, ma sai gli sbagli sono umani, gli sbagli sono umani. Sentirai, ci hanno rubato anche sogni in questa insana società, sempre nel baratro, in questo mondo che va giù. Quanti diavoli, ma sai gli sbagli sono umani, gli sbagli sono umani. Thank you. Tutti i tuoi sbagli ripercorri, ma sai gli sbagli sono umani, gli sbagli sono umani. C'è chi vince e chi perde, chi mai giocherà, chi nelle tante menzogne trova la propria verità. Siamo nel baratro, in questo mondo che va giù, dove siamo arrivati, ma sai gli sbagli sono umani, gli sbagli sono umani. E se siamo a sentire un alto grido sentirai, ci hanno rubato anche sogni in questa insana società, sempre nel baratro, in questo mondo che va giù. Quanti diavoli, ma sai gli sbagli sono umani, gli sbagli sono umani. Thank you. La rivalsa la lascio a voi. Io ho altro da fare del mio tempo. Nei sorrisi di un figlio rivedrai la felicità. E tutti i tuoi sbagli ripercorri, ma sai gli sbagli sono umani, gli sbagli sono umani. C'è chi vince e chi perde, chi mai giocherà, chi nelle tante menzogne trova la propria verità. Siamo nel baratro, in questo mondo che va giù, dove siamo arrivati, ma sai gli sbagli sono umani, gli sbagli sono umani. E se siamo a sentire un alto grido sentirai, ci hanno rubato anche sogni in questa insana società. Sempre nel baratro, in questo mondo che va giù. Quanti diavoli, ma sai gli sbagli sono umani, gli sbagli sono umani.
Hello,
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Ryan. We can't hear you.
Ayan, sorry.
Can't hear
Magandang
you.
gabi.
Yun,
Ako pala yung nakamute
kamusta
eh.
naman
No?
tayo dyan?
Ayan, kamusta? Kamusta to sa balita? Mukhang,
I think lahat tayo busy this week, no? It has been a really intense week. Parang si Carmine, dami ring tugtog kagabi. Parang you had something. I also just got back from an out-of-town engagement. And I think si Ryan, birthday ni Ryan kahapon. So, happy birthday.
to you.
diretso stream, ganun din. Pero okay kasi
So-
face-to-face na, di ba? Ang dami ng, I mean, parang like 2 years ago, di ba? Stuck tayo dito. Hanggang ngayon dito din. Pero, unti-unti, di ba? Papunta tayo dun sa face-to-face. Di ba? May mga drum clinic na rin, di ba? Na face-to-face. So,
Yeah.
like kay Junjun meron, di ba? Parang ganun. So, exciting yun.
Oo nga. Dapat today yun, no? Pero it was
Yeah.
postponed. Tama ba? So it's gonna be next
Oo,
week.
tama.
Next week. Okay, yan. Next week. So,
Next week.
Junjun Regalado. Yan, member rin ng
Yeah.
past PH. Yeah.
And
we should check that
his
out.
father, the legend.
Yes, and his
Mr.
father.
Jun Regalado.
Exciting. Actually,
Yeah,
okay na
father
lang
and
din
son,
para
father.
makapunta
Teacher
tayo.
natin yun.
Oo nga, di ba?
Mismo.
Mismo. Kamusta, Carmi?
yeah.
Anong balita?
Ano, ito, inuubo pa rin ako. Yung nagkasakit ako siguro 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks.
Or about a month. Yung
Oh,
ubo ko,
wow.
di pa rin nagsasubside.
Pero nakakalabas,
Pero ano,
nakakatugtog na sa
nakakalabas
face, no?
naman.
Oo.
Pero kahapon, I tested negative naman.
Oh,
good.
nice. Good. Tsaka parang
Yeah.
quick na lang, no? Like, yung recovery is faster.
Yeah.
Yung symptoms lang na getting, like that, colds and cough. Yeah.
Oo.
Oo.
Tapos, siguro nung nag-positive ako, Clorox, para nilinis ko yung lababo. Di ko maamoy, sabi ko, di ko maamoy yung Clorox.
Oh my God.
Yari.
Oh, what?
Ayun.
Grabe. Oh,
nagkulong
man.
na lang ako.
Oo nga, ganun lang. So, I mean, good to see everyone. Magandang gabi nga rin sa ating mga audience. Sana,
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, ngayon lang ulit natin gagawin, tama ba? Since
Yes.
nag-break tayo ng last tapos andito ulit.
Oo
And
nga.
somehow, I mean, still offering something I mean, content for our fellow drummers na sana
Yes.
makadagdag ulit sa ating mga e-ensayuhin.
Yes.
Ako guilty ako,
Oo
ang
nga,
dami ko pang
dumadami.
assignment. Sa
Yeah.
dami ng mga
Dumadami ang...
episodes, ang dami nga aralin. Para gano'n. Pero
Baka if
okay.
you have drummer friends, paki-share na lang para
Yes,
para rin
please.
matuto din sila, 'di ba?
Tama,
Tsaka
tama.
sa mga kabanda nyo, ganyan. Kabanda yung drummer or I think kahit hindi drummer, may matututunan din dito. So, share nyo lang.
Definitely.
Tama,
Feel free to
tama.
share.
Kasi, kumbaga, lala dito sa atin, di ba? Marami mga drum set drummers din. So,
Yes.
yeah. Okay.
Ako,
Game?
I don't really play drums, pero sinama ako mag-host dito. So, anyway,
Hindi, kasi
I
ang
guess
ganda
this
rin
is
ng
gonna be
topic
an
natin.
exciting session na may
Yeah.
halong world element, no?
That's
Parang
right, that's
ganun.
right, that's right.
So, ganun talaga ang percussion world, nagko-crossover ang ating mga specialties. O, diba? Ang
Oo.
galing ng...
Trying,
and-
segue, okay.
yun.
So, yun ang ating title,
But yeah, speaking of I'm glad si Carmi is safe at sana tuloy-tuloy pa rin ang pag-iingat. Yun na nga, bubukas na ngayon ng mga gigs and the activities happening on-site, yung mga hybrid classroom format. So, but I guess tuloy-tuloy lang din sana, mag-ingat lahat. And I
Yes.
also just want to say that at least tinutuloy pa rin natin itong specialties online, whether or not there are 3 people or 100 people. We're gonna try to keep doing this as best as we can, no? Sa
That's right,
ang
that's right.
Philippines chapter. Kasi marami rin tayong, I believe, natututunan at natutulungan sa ating specialties na ito, no?
Tama.
So,
Tama.
yeah.
Nice. So ating topic, Gahu for drum set, a modern
Yeah.
application of some traditional Ghanaian rhythms, tama ba yun? Ghanaian. So si Tusang familiar sa ganyan, kaya ka na dito. Ganun.
Yun lang
kami,
yun.
kami wala kami alam.
Yes.
Pero,
But this
So-
is really a drum set session, I believe,
Mhm.
no?
Parang yun
Tapos,
yung application.
yeah.
Galing.
At saka, bukod dito, Ryan at Carmi, yung ating guest is, maaga yung gising niya ulit.
Oh my, oo nga.
Para lang sa atin.
Yeah.
So,
Kami from
dapat
Oregon
sulitin
pa,
natin
right?
to.
Portland.
Yes.
So tama ba? Parang Seattle time din yun, no? Di ba? So,
Yeah.
wow. So, gumising siya ng maaga para sa atin, guys.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, game na? Para marami tayong matutunan at makapagtanong-tanong pa. Okay. So, basahin ko muna yung profile, tama ba?
Alright.
Alright,
Sure.
alright. Okay, let me see. Let's do this. Alright. Again, good evening sa inyong lahat. Let me introduce to you our guest for this evening. Okay, for our specialties, Gahu for drum set, a modern application of some traditional Ghanaian rhythms. And so, a drummer, educator, author, speaker, and actor, and more, Mark Powers has studied, performed, and taught throughout North America as well as in Asia, Africa, Europe, the Middle East, and the South Pacific. So, as a teaching artist, he has facilitated a variety of percussion programs, educating students of all ages in over 200 schools and organizations, presenting at youth or adult correctional facilities, and leading businesses and organizations in rhythm-based leadership and team-building workshops. So, Mark is a two-time TEDx speaker, wow, and an on-stage host of 10 additional TEDx events. Co-author of Alfred's Drum Set Method, Book 2, and The 2-in-1 Drummer, and author of Solo in Style, all 3 published by Alfred Music, as well as author of 2 children's board books, I Want to Be a Drummer and I Want to Be a Reader, both published by Blue Manatee Press. He has written for Modern Drummer Magazine, all of us are familiar with that, Drum Magazine, Percussive Notes, and other percussion publications, and teaches private lessons and weekly online masterclasses at powerspercussion.com. Yeah, so Mark plays and endorses Tycoon percussion instruments, Remo drumheads, Sabian cymbals, Vic Firth drumsticks, Pro Logic practice pads, Humes and Berg cases, Sunhouse sensory percussion, and Cajon brush. Wow. So before we introduce our guest for this evening, morning for him, yeah. So let's watch a quick video and then we will welcome him. All right, so here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Powers. Yeah! Woo! Oh, where's Carby? Good morning, Mark. Good evening, everyone.
Good morning.
Oh, there, Carby. Good evening,
Hello,
Trevor.
Mark, it's 6 a.m. there.
It is. It's
Oh.
9 p.m. by you all, right?
Yeah, 9
Na-
p.m. So it's 6?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Thank you for waking up for us.
Absolutely.
It's
This is
amazing.
great.
Thank you so much, Mark.
So we were just talking about it earlier, like breakfast good, coffee good.
Yeah.
6
Got my
a.m.
coffee going.
6 a.m. for the neighbors are good also.
And apparently it's happy hour over here, so we should be like
Oh, yeah,
opening
that's
a
right.
bottle of something. But I don't know
Yeah.
if that's a good thing to do at this point. But
I know.
yeah,
And a weekend too, right?
on a weekend, on the Saturday
Yeah.
night. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how's
Should
it
be
going
cool.
there, Mark? Like, What's
Things
happening?
are
How-
great
yeah.
here. I had a little gig last night in
Oh, no.
Portland, Oregon, where I live
Oh.
here, and a little bit of sleep, and then get up to work with
Oh my
you
gosh.
all, and then I leave this afternoon to shoot a little music video with a band out on the Oregon coast. So
Oh my god.
jam packed.
See guys how busy Mark is, and you got to do this for us, you know. Thank you.
Oh, this is great.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
I know. And yeah, so well, I've read your profile, watched your videos, and it's amazing what you've been doing. You know, like a really versatile drummer, from training, from facilitating rhythm events to drum set to uh, teaching, writing, authoring books, even acting, and
yeah,
climbing. So, like, see a lot of things to do, guys, and you're still gonna be that good. So I don't know. I have too much excuses for myself, so guilty. Just kidding.
yeah. I feel like we have this checklist that's slowly it's not fitting one page anymore. I think
I
it's
know,
already
yeah,
10
yeah.
pages of things that we have to accomplish because Mark Powers does a lot of these things, and we feel like, oh man, we need to do that. Tomorrow
We
we're
need-
going
we need
rock
the
climbing, Karmitara.
I know, right?
We're gonna put something. We're gonna organize maybe a past Philippines rock climbing thing because Mark Powers does that. So
Inspiring,
I think
right?
that's a good one. Yeah. We're very inspired by
The
that.
goals,
So,
goals.
Oh, so
Doing-
good.
amazing.
Paradiddle on
Mark,
climbing.
Mark has a lot of powers.
Yes.
Oh, maybe
Yes.
that explains
Yes.
it.
You deserve your surname, Mark.
I know, yeah. So
We
wait,
feel like you're worthy of it, and we should bow to thee. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, not even
Wow.
close.
wait, a quick question, Mark. Like just for like for other, because there'll be like people will be watching. Some of them will be like beginners, and some of them will be advanced. But like for you, how did it start out for you when you're getting into drums and even reaching here at this age? Right? Maybe just a quick
Yeah.
story, maybe, or background.
Yeah, I started playing drums first of all in 5th grade, That was where I was going to school. That's where you could choose an instrument if you wanted to and jump into concert band, playing some snare drum, bass drum, things along those lines. So that's what when and where I started out, and eventually after several years of that, that led me to meeting some other musicians and doing the garage band thing where I start playing some favorite rock tunes with friends, and from there I realized that it was something that I was a little bit more serious about doing and wanted to continue actually studying after high school. So I ended up studying at a little music college in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in kind of the central part of the United States, and studied there with a variety of amazing teachers, one of whom is David Stanek, who's heavily involved with a lot of Percussive Art Society projects and is the drum set editor of Percussive Notes magazine these days. And yeah, from there, not only really furthered my drum set studies, but then became more exposed to world music as well. So when I got out of college, I took it upon myself to try to start traveling and studying percussion, more traditional percussion that was not drum set related, whenever I could. So I spent some time in Ghana studying over there, which we'll chat about today, and then have made several trips to Puerto Rico and trip to Cuba. And whenever I've traveled, when I've played in Southeast Asia with bands, or really anywhere I go, I've always tried to make sure to be finding some way to learn a little bit about some traditional musics, because number one, I love learning, and number two, when I play things on the drum set, even if I choose to, what we'd call like bastardize things and, like not play something traditionally, I want to know what is traditionally correct, so that just to have respect for that style and draw from some authentic vocabulary. And then it obviously just opens up lots of things to be able to, as a teacher, turn around and be sharing. So I'm always open to be learning new things anywhere.
Wow. Inspiring.
It's amazing.
I know, right? It's like how unlimited things to really learn and never stops, right?
Never.
Especially with your cross. How did you start? I saw you, like, I watched one of your TED videos where you did like you facilitated like almost like a rhythm event as you started. Like, how did you get into that? What made you interested also in things like that? Because I do that a little bit also. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, for me, everything has just been very organic, where one thing just kind of led to another thing. I've believed for years that, the more things you say yes to and the more things you learn, the more you open yourself up to other possible opportunities. Someone throws an idea out and you just say, sure, I'll try that. And then you end up learning something and heading a direction that maybe you wouldn't have planned. And that's the case with all of that stuff, because from my studies, I started going into schools and teaching some traditional styles, doing, some Ghanaian styles and things like that. And then that also led to schools asking me to do some kind of alternative junk percussion programs. So kind of based off Stomp or Blue Man Group or some of these percussion groups. So I had started working with a couple of schools doing some of that. And then eventually someone asked me to do that in an adult context. So it ended up turning some of that into a little bit more of a corporate team building workshop.
That's right.
And then someone that knew I was doing that asked me to speak at a larger event. So, my groups just kind of kept growing from 24 kids in a classroom to, maybe, 50, 60 managers for a company to, 700 people in an auditorium, speaking. Wow. And I just had to constantly find ways to take some of the rhythmic ideas and maybe more just life ideas that I was trying to use the rhythms to portray, and just had to find ways to scale them for larger audiences, really. So it's the group workshops was never anything I set out to do. It's just kind of this
came in,
very non-linear path that kind of led me to get into that.
Wow. And all the learnings like weave in through all of them, right? From the kids to the corporate to drum set, right?
Yeah, all the time.
Wow.
Yep.
And I think that's what's good about drumming, right? It's a primal instrument. I know, you know, instrument. Yeah, so it crosses to all generations, all ages, right?
Oh, yeah, and it's the drums. I mean, honestly, any musical instrument or any musical style, it doesn't matter what you're looking at. But we're definitely all kind of talking drums here. I mean, it's the sort of thing that's never ending. You're never going to know all of it, and I think that's the fascinating thing about it. And you could line up 100 people who all started in the exact same way I did and began down the same pathway, but everybody's gone different directions
That's
with
right.
their interests and their studies, and I think that's a beautiful thing.
Wow.
Nice.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah,
Mark,
Carmi, or
I
yeah,
have a
yeah.
question. So, like you mentioned, you've traveled in so many parts of the world learning these traditional musics. What would you say would be your personal takeaway from that, the traveling, like learning all of these rhythms and music? How would you like? How did that affect you? What are your impressions of like world rhythms in general? Do you have like a particular favorite music tradition? Is there one
Uh,
particular culture that struck you? You know,
yeah, that's a great
yeah.
question. I mean, it affected me, influenced me in a lot of different ways. And I know, Tusa, you mentioned before we went on the air that your trip to Ghana was kind of a life changing
Yeah.
experience in several ways, and that
Yes.
was the same for me. I hadn't traveled much before I went to Ghana, so for me, I kind of felt that was like my life's one big trip. It was my one opportunity to get out of the country and go somewhere, and that was going to be it. And then I don't know what I thought. I was just going to come back here and settle down for the rest of my life. But the trip to Ghana totally changed that. It just made me realize how huge the world is and how amazing people are in a culture that I know nothing about at all. And it was really just the switch for me that made me. I came home from that trip needing to figure out where I was going to go next. And I just needed to, constantly be going different places because the musical styles to study are endless. And I think one of the things I've learned is that people are exactly the same and completely different everywhere you go. And that's so awesome. I mean, we have
Yeah.
these just human traits and needs and, like things that we are all searching for that are universal. And so you go to the other side of the planet and you hang with somebody and you realize, oh, this person is really just like me in so many ways. We're all trying to study our instruments or whatever.
Right.
But again, I love embracing the differences. Wow, I can learn so much from this person, or like I love the foods that come up in different areas, um, and I think musically one of the things that has everywhere I've gone has really fascinated me more than anything else is how people can take the simplest of objects, and I'm using objects instead of instruments intentionally because take the simplest of objects and make incredible music with it. And it just proves that like the music is really in you, and if you need to find a way to get it out, you're going to find a way to get it out, and it doesn't matter whether you have a quality controlled professional instrument that you had. I mean, it's great, and a lot of the instruments we play, it's nice to have something that is so high quality
Yes.
it makes your job easier portraying what you want to say musically. But that's unnecessary. I was studying in Ghana, and I would go down to the bar in the village in the evening to hang out, and some little kid would have a tin can and a pencil and to be playing all the master drum rhythms that I was studying back during the day. And this little kid would play these master drum rhythms, just bending the pitch with his thumb, and he would quiz me, testing to see if I knew the dance steps that went along with each of the master drum patterns, and things like that. And his little tin can master drum patterns were way better than the way I played in my lessons with a real instrument. And everywhere you go, you see that, and I just think that's awesome.
Oh, that's very beautiful. That's very beautiful. Like, thank you for sharing that with us.
I know, right?
Yeah.
What experience, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's go to Ghana. Ghana, Ghana.
Yeah, yeah, we
Gotta go.
Gonna go.
Yeah.
Gonna go. All right. So we don't want to, we wanna. We're excited to see, like just experience what you're gonna be sharing for us tonight. So we leave you right to it. So
Very cool.
cool,
Well,
cool, cool. So
thanks everyone for having me on. So Tusa, Ryan, Carmi, this is just so awesome to get to hang out with you all, and just the Percussive Art Society in general, I think, is awesome because of all of these different connections it makes between drummers, whether it's drummers right in your hometown or around the world like this, just getting to be able to meet up and connect with other drummers, whether it's through a Specialties event like this or at the PASIC annual drum convention. The Percussive Art Society has been amazing for me, and certainly most people watching are probably already familiar with PAS, or the Percussive Art Society, but if you're not, it is really the professional organization for drummers and percussionists around the world, regardless of what you're playing, whether it's a drum set or mallet percussion or world percussion or marching or anything. And the last several years, I've had the honor of being on the drum set committee at the PAS, and that committee is really tasked with largely a number of things, but really heavily involved with selecting the artists who end up coming to be clinicians and performers at the annual convention, as well as just pursuing a number of different educational initiatives on a regular basis. And just this year, I took over as chair of that committee, and so I'm kind of steering a lot of that's going on. So we'll definitely be at the PASIC event this November. So anyone who's watching who is there, please catch me and say hi. I know that Satur is coming over from Hong Kong. He's going to be over here, which is going to be great to get to meet him in person. But definitely, if you haven't already, check out pas.org and consider joining and becoming a member if you're not already. It's an amazing group of people. But today, talking about Gahu for drum set, which Ryan mentioned earlier is our topic, I just want to share a handful of rhythms that are not very difficult rhythms. They're by themselves fairly simple. Doesn't always mean easy necessarily, but simple little rhythms, and just some ways that I've adapted them to the drum set. Because many of the traditional styles that certainly I've studied in different parts of the world and that really have existed for a long time in communities that make music together tend to be ensemble percussion styles where there's not a drummer or a percussionist, it's a group of players who all have parts that lock together. And as I'll demonstrate a little bit later, one of my favorite things about these is how so often the parts lock together not only rhythmically but also melodically. Between the high, medium, and low pitches, you get these melodies, or really it's often thought as little conversations that are being had between these different voices of a family. And as a drummer, I think it's really valuable to spend some time studying some of these styles, because you can gather some vocabulary that you might not already have to incorporate into your playing. You can, as I mentioned earlier, develop a little bit of an understanding and respect for some of those musics and the people that are playing those styles, which also I think on a personal level just helps you relate a little bit more to some other people that you meet. Maybe you've spent some time studying studying some style, even if you haven't traveled there, but you meet someone from that area who plays music, and when you play musically, even if you're not playing and even though you're not going to learn to speak Tagalog when you're in the Philippines, you at least learn how to say a couple of phrases, and people really appreciate the fact that you're making an effort and that you have a little bit of an understanding. So I think music being the universal language, that's a truth here as well. The more we can learn about music from different places, the more we can also understand people from different places, and to me, that's really important. So the Ghanaian style we're going to talk about today is called Gahun, which is a recreational style of the Ewe people in southeast Ghana, as well as other areas nearby in Benin and Togo. And I had the pleasure of studying with a number of teachers in a little village called Copaia several years ago. And a lot of the studies were on traditional instruments such as this. I brought a collection of the Ewe instruments back, and this is a kagan, which we'll be chatting about a little later. And I'm not going to be playing everything on the traditional instruments today, but I wanted to give you a little idea of what you would be playing on. They're stave construction, like a conga, and not a goat skin head. These are actually, the Ghanaian set that I have are all antelope skin, and they're very thick and strong, so you can play them with sticks and definitely create some pretty powerful sounds. And I'm just going to teach you a number of basic rhythms that different instruments play in this Gahu style, and then we'll put them on the drum set and combine a couple a little bit. So first one to start with, if you're learning how to play Gahu in Ghana, would be the double bell, which is sometimes called gankogui, also goes by gakbavi or tingo, has a variety of different names. There are lots of different languages over there, so sometimes there's more than one word or name used to refer to a particular instrument. But this is one that many of you have probably seen before, and the gankogui or the tingo is really kind of two bells put together. We have this small high-pitched bell and a large low-pitched bell, and you combine them to play different rhythms. And the basic rhythm that is played on Gahu, that it really creates the timeline that keeps all the other drummers and the dancers and singers together, is really a simple little three-note phrase. And there are a couple of variations on it as well, but I normally start with my beginning students just looking at this three-note phrase, which is only 2 beats long, but we're basically playing like a dotted eighth, eighth note. So we're really just playing this rhythm right here. And sometimes that will, I'll get students who are unfamiliar with this playing just the first note on the low bell and the next 2 notes on the high bell. So you're playing 1 E and a, 2 E and a, getting that sort of rhythm. And this obviously translates extremely easily to the drum set, where you can be playing that on any part of the kit, really. You could be playing it on a rim or a cowbell on the kit, or a ride cymbal bell, hi-hats. So that's actually right where I would start, would just be taking that dotted eighth, eighth note rhythm, that 3-3-2, and play it on your hi-hat or ride cymbal or cowbell. Nothing too complicated there. Like I said, fairly simple rhythms for the most part. A couple of the combinations will get a little bit trickier. But the next instrument that we want to take a look at is the rattle, which is normally referred to as the ahachi. And the ahachi is a little gourd rattle, the long stems, you have a handle to hang on to. They chop the end off, empty out the insides. Use a little string to create a netting here that you can tie any number of different things onto. This has little seeds. Sometimes I've seen bits of seashells or little ceramic beads that'll be made. And the ahachi is really played getting 2 different strokes. So they often say that the downstroke, where you set the ahachi just down in your leg, is referred to as pa. There are a lot of these mnemonic syllables that we use that help us communicate the rhythms between players. So that's a pa stroke. And then coming up to hit your open palm or your fist is a T stroke. And the basic ahachi rhythm is this down, down, up, down, 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 up, down, or you would speak it as pa, pa, ti, pa, 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 ti, pa. When we move that to the drum set, the obvious place to play that would be on something like the hi-hats. And you could do this a couple of different ways. You could play either all of that with one hand on the hi-hat, getting... But what I really like doing is actually splitting things up and thinking of that pa and T stroke differently. So maybe I'll even play the pa strokes here on the little chopper stack that I have and just play that T stroke with my left foot. So I'm splitting, playing pa, pa, ti, pa. And then again, move that right hand around. Play it on your ride cymbal. Play it on your cowbell. And I would also practice being able to play the left foot on all beats. So we're adding in a hi-hat on the down beats of 1 and 3, but as we might do in the middle of lots of other drum set patterns, we have that left foot just playing that steady quarter note pulse. So instead of only playing the backbeat on that T stroke we're just keeping the quarters straight through with that left foot. So that would be the next step. Just get yourself used to keeping that left foot pulse going while your right hand's playing that dotted chord or dotted eighth note rhythm again. Which, if you didn't notice, once we split that up like that, that right hand is suddenly playing the exact same rhythm as the bell. That low, high, ding, gang, 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 and the pa, pa, ti, pa, 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 ti, pa. If we take out the T strokes, that bell and those pa strokes are playing the exact same rhythm. So those two support instruments just lock in perfectly together. And that's kind of an obvious place to start with those. But then we're going to move to the first of the actual drums we're going to play. And the first one we're going to take a look at is this drum right here, the kagan, which in this style is often said to just be playing its own name. So it's literally just playing kagan, 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 kagan. We would often say that those two notes are falling on kind of upbeat 16th notes. So instead of thinking of the first note of that kagan pattern being on a beat or on a pulse, we're thinking of it starting on an and. So it'd be 1 E enda, 2 E enda, 1 E enda, 2 E enda. And then maybe I'll voice it on the high tom, something like this. If we have that left foot again playing our downbeat, we can put those kagan notes on the high tom playing the upbeats. One thing I want to point out here, though, when I was studying in Copaia, I had this interesting experience where I was playing kagan along with the full ensemble, and I was tapping my foot just on the ground silently, my toe or my heel bopping up and down. And the drummer who was playing next to me one day suddenly reached over and stepped on my toes. And I pulled my foot out from underneath his. I thought he just somehow accidentally stepped on me. I was like, that's weird. And a minute or two later, I was back to tapping my foot on the ground and playing my upbeat kagan notes. And his foot slid over and he stepped on my toes again. And I quickly realized that that was not accidental, that he was telling me to stop tapping my foot. And that was weird because up to this point, I had used that as a tool, and many of you probably have, to keep track of the downbeat pulse, keep track of the quarter note, and get comfortable playing other things against it. And what I learned over time was that that was not the approach any of them took. They were really taking that timeline that the double bell was playing, that, and relating all of the other rhythms to that long, long, short, long, short, one, and, rather than to this kind of static, universal downbeat that goes through the middle of all these things. And When I let myself really focus on how just those two kagan notes even fit with the bell, where it's like bell, 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 and not thinking about there being a 1, 2, 1, 2 through the middle of it, I realized I was really locking in a lot better and really aware of that other person's part and how it related to mine. And it just felt more musical, and it let things just kind of breathe a little bit more, kept the ensemble tighter together. So I really tried to start focusing on that with all of the rhythms that I played. And for drum set applications, there are times where having that downbeat is something you might choose musically to do. Again, we may not be trying to learn these to play all the styles traditionally correctly. We might be bastardizing some of these and taking elements of them to sneak into some other things we're playing. But I think it's a really good practice to at least try to do that so that you can get away from thinking about timekeeping in the way that a lot of us probably have up to this point. So as we put that together, the double bell, the rhythm of the bell is on the bottom here, and then we have the kagan up top. And I would encourage you to try playing some rhythms like this and not think about where the 1, 2, 3, 4 is in the middle. Really feel that bell, drum both drum, bell, drum both drum, and really get comfortable locking those two in. But then, as I actually have notated here, I would also take that left foot pattern, since we're applying this stuff to the drum set. Take that rhythm on the bottom, since we're applying this to the drum set, and make it be played by your left foot. So actually take that same pattern, but instead of your right hand playing that bell pattern, let your left foot do it. So we have the ability to play that left foot on those downbeats if that's what we're musically choosing to do, but we also have the ability to take that bell rhythm and let the left foot play that instead, which gets our left foot a little bit more involved than we sometimes might. And again, just really gets us away from playing just that downbeat and just focusing on how those blend together. So I would definitely play around with that. And then I would put both of those ideas together. So on exercise 6 here, the left foot hi-hat is going back to just playing those downbeats. We have the kagan rhythm playing that anda, anda. Now I'm going to play all of those with just my left hand, because then just above that, those X's are going to be my right hand playing the dotted eighth, eighth note bell rhythm on the cowbell. So now we have 3 elements put together. Pause there just for a moment, just to see if anyone has any questions about any of this stuff at all, whether it's these styles or any of the rhythms or anything like that at all.
Whew.
That was really fun.
I know. Well, that was an eye opener for me. Like when you mentioned about that leaving out the quarter note pulse, but still keeping that forward motion. And
yeah.
Like it breaks your drum set drummer, mindset, like keeping, because that's how they would teach us, right, to keep that quarter note pulse and put everything on top of it, right? So this is the bell is the master, or sorry, the bell is the pulse. Is that right?
Yeah, it's really creating that timeline that everything is based off of. And it's often the master drummer who is setting that up in the very beginning, like might start wrapping that rhythm away on the shell of the drum to set up the tempo and stuff. But once that bell player starts that and just keeps it going, everything is locking into that somehow.
Wow, interesting. So is there like something similar also to our like in the Philippine instruments? Is it like almost the same? Or is there?
Yeah, actually. Well, we do have like a concept of interlocking rhythms in some of our traditional gong music. I'm familiar with the gahu parts. I think the bell pattern that I'm more familiar with is the tingo go tingo, which I think is connected to what you just played as well. So I actually
Yes.
have
Wow.
my own gonggongwi. It's right here.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah, it's there. So, um, and I'm just amazed with your use of the kagang patterns and combining them with all the other parts. Yeah, gahu is always for me like a fun piece of music. I could never get tired of it. Just playing it. The rhythms. I'm familiar with some of the lead drumming as well, but it's been a while. But I would say this is really good. Um, unlocking again. It's bringing back a lot of things for me about gahu. So thank you for that.
I love it.
Yeah, I think Carmi has thoughts as well about this
Carmi, maybe
thing so far.
you can unmute yourself. Yeah. Is it there?
Uh, Maybe I could apply that to my, yeah, uh, adding some elements of gahu to make it more musical. So maybe I'll
Nice.
try to practice that, especially the independence that's involved. So we need some time for that, long time for that to master
I know.
and play it without even thinking about it.
I know.
Yeah.
And thank you, Mark, for
That's
writing them
challenging,
down
but
too.
it
Yeah.
sounds nice. I love it.
Very cool. All right. Well, I will keep going and add a few more if you guys want.
Good.
Maybe before
Cool.
we continue, shout out to those joining us on Facebook tonight.
Yes.
I much respect to our fellow past members, no, Carmi at Ryan, like Sir Ernie Severino.
That's right.
Sino
Was in
pa
a
ba?
show right now, still watching.
Mardison. They're out doing their gigs, but there's also online trying to catch your session here. So really, this is how we do things. This is how we roll at Fast Philippines. So
Yeah.
mabuhay at enjoy po sa tugtog, sir, mga sir. So,
All right.
Excellent.
Okay. Yeah. We'll continue.
Absolutely.
Thanks to say.
I will.
Yes, sir.
I will point out quickly before we go on, Tusa mentioned a Gankogui bell variation, which is a very, very common one that you'll run across a lot. And like she said, it seems similar to this. The first three notes in the variation she was talking about and the last note are exactly the same. And to play the variation she was talking about, you would take this third beat and change it to another upbeat eighth. So you're getting this ba, 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 which is a very, very, very common Gahu bell variation as well. You will run across that a lot. I'm often starting students off with this shorter phrase just because it's a little easier to kind of digest and start getting into. When you apply it to drum set, it's a little shorter of an ostinato as well, but expanding to playing all of these same things with that other bell pattern is super, super cool. So the next drum I want to talk about is the next step up in your progression learning these rhythms. You start with the bell, then you move on to the rattle, then you move to the kagan, and the next is a drum called kidi. And kidi and her big brother in the Eve family of instruments are both played getting two different stroke types, which was something, again, as a drum set player, I was not very familiar with. And those stroke types are, number one, just hitting the drum with a stick and pulling the stick away, as you typically do. But then the second one was taking the tip of the stick and you're just squashing it right into the drum head. And with my young students, I'm normally just literally calling that a squash stroke. But it's like a muted stroke or a dead stroke, a closed stroke. People have lots of different names for it. But so you end up getting some regular tones and some of these little squash tones. Cuts the sustain of the drum length down a little bit. It also sometimes gets a little pitch bend because you're pressing into the head. And then they combine those to make different rhythms. And the basic rhythm that Kiri is normally playing on this Ganghu style that we're learning is a long tone, two faster tones, and then two of these squashes. So it sounds something like this. But again, our ear often takes that first note we hear and thinks of it as the downbeat, almost like we're playing 1 and a 2 E and 1 and a 2 E and. But that first note is actually a pickup. So again, we're going to kind of think of it in, the way a lot of us do related to this quarter note, but then later we'll relate it to that bell pattern. But again, I think thinking of it both ways just benefits you because you have more applications of these things. So instead of thinking of that as 1 and that first note is our 1, it's a pickup, like an eighth note pickup. So 1, 2, 1, 2. So the whole rhythm ends up being a little bit more of how I would see it this way, with our pickup starting right here. So we get and 1E, a 2, and 3E, a 4, and 1E. So we kind of lead into a little bit. So if I play that on the mid tom here, and add some left foot on the downbeats, it's like this. Or again, we can take that same thing, and the next step would be to play the bell rhythm with our left foot. So our left foot is playing off that dotted eighth, eighth note pattern happening right there. And then as I start to expand these ideas further to the drum set, it gets a little tricky with one hand assigned to a drum like this at tempo to be playing those open strokes and those closed notes. So I'm often focused mostly on the melody created in between these instruments in the Eve instrument family. So a lot of times I will start to leave out those squash strokes, those little muted sounds, and just focus on those open tones because those jump out a little bit more in the melody of things. So if we do that, if we, instead of playing that entire left or that entire Kiri rhythm, if I leave out those little squash strokes, we're just left with that and 1E, and 1E, something like this. And maybe I'll play that with the left foot hi-hat playing quarters. And the beauty of that is that allows us now to move that right hand back to, say, the ride cymbal bell or the cowbell, and bring that bell rhythm element back in, the gankogwi, and we have the left foot playing the downbeats, and we have the open tones from that Kiri rhythm jumping out there a little bit. So again, I like how those start lining up there. And if you think about the melody created between just those upbeat kagan notes that we had, that kagan, 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 and then that ba ba da ba ba da of the Kiri rhythm, it's pretty cool how the two of those start locking in melodically. Like I said, not only rhythmically but also melodically. So those just fit together extremely well. The third drum we're going to take a look at gets a little bit larger. It's, as I mentioned, Kiri's big brother, and it is a drum called Sogo. And the Sogo rhythm, again, uses some of those muted sounds and the open tones. But for this, we're going to play that open tone just on what we drum set players might refer to as the backbeat, so playing that open tone on 2 and 4, and then the other hand is just going to play all the muted strokes on 1, 3, and the ands of the even numbers. So I will often play this on the Sogo, I will normally play these muted strokes all with my left hand, and those open strokes I'm just playing with my right hand, which is a little opposite how we're often thinking if we're a right-handed player on the drum set, playing the left hand backbeats. And I kind of like how that feels opposite the way I would normally approach things. So just the Sogo rhythm on the floor tom. We will add that left foot just playing a quarter note, so we, again, can feel that quarter note pulse. Ready to go. Then, of course, we're going to shift that left foot into playing that bell rhythm. So keep the Sogo rhythm going between the right and left hand, get that dotted eighth, eighth note thing going with the left foot again. And of course, can't stop there. We've got to go back to the left foot playing the downbeat pulse and bring the right hand in playing the bell rhythm. But again, this is one of those spots where you'll see the muted strokes get left out. So since we're just focusing on that bigger melody note, this is mnemonically also often spoken like vous, de, vous, de, vous, de, vous, and those big day strokes, those big backbeats, are emphasized. So in this case, I'm going to leave the squash strokes out. Right hand plays the bell, left foot's just playing the quarter note. Not too complicated coordination wise, just a little different rhythm to jump into playing there. Awesome. Now, to me, this is where the fun begins because, again, these are all kind of coming from an ensemble style of music. So one person would be playing kaga, 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 kaga. Somebody else is playing ba ba da ga 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 ga. Somebody else is playing vu, de vu vu, de vu vu, de vu vu. And then, Tusa mentioned some of the lead drum, or master drum patterns as well. There's a drum called boba, which is this gigantic barrel-looking drum, and you basically climb over the top of the thing and play it with these huge sticks. And it is really, it's what we consider the master drum, and it's really carrying the same role in a musical performance as someone we might refer to as the master of ceremonies or the MC at an event. So that person on stage would be, have a microphone and would be introducing the guests and keeping the show moving, keeping an eye on the time, hurrying things up if need be. And that's really what the master drum is doing. It has this rhythmic vocabulary that everybody knows, not just the master drummer. The master drummer knows, the other drummers know, the dancers know, the singers know, so that when everyone hears certain rhythms played, they are quite literally calls and signals telling everybody when to make switches into different sections of the music or when to stop and things like that. And that is opening up a whole nother can of worms. Maybe we can do another one of these sometime just talking about that drum's rhythms. But these support parts in themselves can start getting really cool as you start combining these a little bit. When we, again, take these ensemble sounds and start trying to put them together as one player. So the next thing I want to do is take the big notes of each of these drums and put them together to start creating a little bit of a melody here, because then we can start coming up even with further ideas to maybe add snare drum in between them and some cymbals and find ways to work them into other popular styles that we play. So this big mashup of notes right here is really a combination of the Kagan playing high tom with the left hand on all of these notes. So I've just got the left hand just playing Kagan, 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 Kagan. And then the right hand is playing the key D rhythms right here. So it's got that 1E, 2, and 1E, 2, and 1, 2, ready, go. But the right hand is also playing our big Sogo backbeat on the floor tom. So it's just playing that big day stroke on 2 and 4. So the right hand itself is actually playing 1E, 2, and 3E, 4, and covering both of those drums at the same time. So that's not a bad idea to just isolate those. Again, I'm keeping that left foot playing that quarter note straight through. But when we put all of these together, you get this really cool melody between all 3 of these drums. And sometimes I will intentionally try to play those really nice and cleanly, where I'm just what we'd call flat flamming all of those spots where the high tom and mid tom are falling at the same time. Other time I will intentionally let it get a little bit loosey-goosey, a little bit sloppy in there, and let them kind of open up and flam. And to me, it just kind of thickens up the sound that's created between those. But I love how between all 3 of those things going on, you have that left hand high tom in there playing the kagan rhythm. You get kagan, 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 and then the mid tom is playing that key, and then the floor tom is just playing the big giant day, day, day. So you've got all of those together, and I will normally encourage my students, once they get that sort of combination going, to try to be able to vocalize, just like I did there, each of them individually, so that you're building the coordination, the independence to really be able to focus on one or the other, and still keep them all going like that. So the last thing I want to do with this is, of course, get away from playing that downbeat, that quarter note, which can be useful, but as we've been chatting about, it's good to get away from. So this is the exact same rhythm, but the left foot is playing the bell rhythm again. And you'll notice I'm often starting right here on these 2 notes as the pickup, just because it tends to happen that way a lot with that little pickup that the key D is playing coming in. So I often start with and a 1E and a 2 and a 3E and a 4. 1, 2, ready. So there you have it, all kinds of cool Gahu support parts. And then, play around with that sort of thing. It's really fun to take that sort of idea and play around in the drum set. See if you can find a way to take one of those notes and maybe move it over to the snare drum. So maybe one of those floor toms, I move it over to the snare. I love doing this sort of thing with a different foot ostinato. Like some of us have maybe worked on playing that dotted eighth note rhythm in the bass drum with left foot playing upbeats, sort of thing. Sometimes, we work on when we start getting into some foot ostinato stuff. Play that sort of rhythm. So now the bell is kind of being covered by the bass drum. I suppose you could even set up another pedal and have like a cowbell or something. But again, thinking typical drum set land, kind of cool to put it there. Get this tom pattern going. Move one of those floor toms over to the snare. and you could just come up with your own ways to take those elements and maybe sneak them into something. And in addition to that, again, I think another great reason to even learn any of these traditional styles as well is sometimes you'll find that even if you don't play them directly just on the drum set, sometimes these elements might be things you sneak into additional percussion tracks that you record behind drum set parts that you're recording with somebody. Sometimes I'll be inspired by some of these rhythms, and I might sneak in some percussion parts where that Kagan rhythm is being played on a glass bottle that I have in the studio, and a couple of the other rhythms are played as some tom overdubs on like a big heavy section at the end of a song or something, kind of faded in or mixed in underneath of the drum set part that I'm already playing. So study lots of different styles, anything that's just outside of the norm for you, and let yourself just kind of like Carmi mentioned earlier, let yourself work on this stuff till you get to the point where you don't have to think about it too much, and then don't force it. Let it just kind of seep in musically where it chooses to in your playing. And I think that all of us can benefit from just expanding our stylistic horizons like that.
Woohoo! Wow. Yeah.
Ooh.
Thank you.
That was so clear, Mark. Everything.
Cool. I'm glad.
I know. I love how you put all these instructions together, like even the markings and the notation, and how the whole flow is really clear. And,
cool. I'm glad.
Yeah. So any questions for you? Well, checking on the comments, well, one, they really like the sound from
Nice.
from Ryan yeah, Lacanio,
Brutus,
yeah. Kay Brutus, oh, yeah.
Hello, Sir Brutus.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think Otep was watching also kanina. Hello
Yeah,
po.
yeah.
Sir.
It's so clear. Yeah, I like also like what you mentioned earlier. Like I think the key here is also the like hearing the melody correctly. And then I think that's my takeout. And another one is like when you're teaching it to students that you have them vocalize it, so singing it and maybe if it's in parts or and that pickup part is really makes a difference, because if you don't hear the pickup part, then you hear it opposite on the totally flipped out, right?
Completely. Yeah.
Completely
If you
flipped out,
don't think of those notes as a pickup,
that's right.
It changes the perception, your entire perception of what the rhythm is.
That's right.
It's crazy.
But I mean, in maybe in Ghana, it's not. They don't even call it a pickup, right? So they just go
Right.
right. So
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And that's actually a really good point, because they don't. They're not saying, "Oh, I'm going to play a pickup leading into yours." Like each of these instruments has its phrase, and these phrases just happen to lock in together in certain ways, and they know that that's this voice starts talking first, and then this voice jumps in and joins it in this spot, and so it does take a little while. For certainly for my ear, it took a little while to kind of discern
where
that
the
sort
one
of
is.
thing. Yeah, and I needed to become aware of where the one was for me based on kind of my left brain studies and upbringing, but then also try to let myself start letting go of that and not think about a one so much, like that downbeat like I was saying, so it's like that's where that whole downbeat thing is really useful for a lot of us who have learned how to play that way, but it's so powerful to try to get yourself away from thinking about that too, and just thinking about how these phrases lock in, which is where that singing thing comes in, vocalizing those, because I think it just makes you acutely aware of how all the parts you're playing fit in, and that sort of thing you can apply to everything. I mean, play it with your funk and hip hop beats or whatever. Can you play your favorite grooves? I mean, I've done this with students a lot, where I'm like, you pick your favorite groove, like play it for me, and they'll sit and play it. And I'm like, cool, now play it again, but I want you to sing the bass drum rhythm while you do it. And so you're just going boom, 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 without messing any of the other stuff up.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's really tough to do, to separate that out. But if you can do that, you're just like deepening your understanding of that rhythm, and you're able to really focus on the placement of those bass drum notes, and it's really useful.
Reminds me of like playing a Michael Jackson song and you're singing the bass drum for, you know,
Oh yeah.
right on the bass drum and doing that ostinato on top. So
Totally.
this one's like it just happens to be fit on on a four cycle on a four in a four beat cycle, or it just happened, or that's how you interpreted it, or
Yeah.
it's really that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's certainly my interpretation, just, kind of based on where it came from. But yeah, a lot of these are what I think of as essentially little two-beat phrases. I mean, looking at that, I mean, the Kagan rhythm is literally a one-beat loop. You're just playing Kagan, Kagan. It's that one over and over again. And then when you get to things like the Kiri and the Sogo, it's a little bit more of a two-beat phrase.
Yeah.
And then that bell rhythm, that the way I shared it is, we could think of it as a two-beat phrase. Tusa's version immediately
four-beat,
makes
yeah.
it a four-beat phrase, right? It gets stretched out longer. And then as soon as you start incorporating some of the master drum rhythms, like the Boba master drum playing ton, ton, gade, gade, ton, ton, gade, gade. Now that stretches it out a little bit longer as well. And some of those things overlap a little bit. Some of these voices, things will kind of come and go, which again, can take a little while from the Western ear. We play something up until the bridge of the song happens, and then everybody in the band makes a change at the same time. Sometimes with these styles, it's not like that. It's like there's a little change already taking place before someone else does, and things just kind of feel a little bit more organic, which I think is what makes it difficult for a lot of us to first understand when we listen to it. And some people listen to these styles and pass by it pretty quickly because you just don't get it. But once you start learning what those phrases are, then you can start hearing them, and then it starts making sense. Again, just like learning a new language.
That's right.
You start learning some words out of a guidebook or something, but most of what people say wherever you travel just flies by you. But eventually, you pick up on a word, and you're like, oh, they're talking about eating balut right now. Like, okay, I don't know what they said about it, but I do know they talked about balut. And I've had it, and I will do it again. But
Same here.
Yeah, nice. But the more you learn about the language, eventually you start piecing more and more together. And all of this musical stuff is exactly the same. Eventually, you start hearing it, going, "Oh, I understand what they're saying now."
Wow. Yeah. Anything, Carmi or Lisa? Yeah.
I think Carmi has something to add or comments.
It's good that we learned this, no? I think it can add up to our vocabulary as a drummer. So knowing this style of drumming in each culture. So sometimes we travel, sometimes we just research online. So this will be a big help for us to incorporate all of this and make a masterpiece out of it. So different culture, different sound, different texture. It's really really nice. I really appreciate it. And
Cool.
I wanna go now and practice.
Go.
At 10, 11 p.m.
right after this.
Yeah. In fact,
Inuman session.
That's why I asked for the copies.
Practice drinking session with
Mark, is that,
Gahu and
would that be
And
possible?
balut,
Like if you
with balut and
with
beers.
balut.
And
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
everything works out.
Come to think of it, you were sharing earlier that you've learned a Tagalog line, right? I remember. You mentioned-
Oh, yes.
Like learning a new
Maligayang
language, yeah.
Aran Kalayan. Yeah, that's the only thing I know how to say in Tagalog.
Maligayang kalayaan.
Araw ng kalayaan.
Araw ng kalayaan.
Araw ng kalayaan.
And very poorly, I'm sure. But
So it's like going back also to learning those parts. Like it may sound to them like you're something like that, right? And then as you get
Right.
fluent to the rhythms or the melodies, then you're like saying it properly with your hands.
right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, you learn the pronunciation.
Yeah.
All the subtleties that go into a language exist in the musical languages that we all speak. It's like you can learn how to play some rhythms on a very basic level, but the longer you study just the better you get at saying even those simple things. It's the
Yeah,
reason
yeah.
that you can line up 20 different drummers and have them all play the most simple of rock beats, but they're all going to sound different.
That's
And you
right. That's
have
right.
that occasional drummer, you have the Steve Jordans of the world who you hear play boom, ka, boom, ka, and immediately you just go, oh, it feels so good. Like, why can't I do that? That's amazing. It's just he understands more about that language than most of us do. It's just great.
That's right. That's right. Wow. Rhythm.
Yeah, Mark, thanks.
Yeah.
I mean, I really appreciated the last few things that you did with the gahu. It just made me realize how gahu can be such a versatile thing. The way you combined all these different parts, you can actually play it in rock, jazz, hip hop. I figured you've done it a number of
I'm
times,
sure.
and I was really asking. One of the things that came to my mind while you were presenting the rhythm is, and in doing all of these on the drums, is how you really apply this in your day-to-day gig life, and you did mention a couple of stories, like, and that you managed to record a few of them in the while doing studio work, incorporating some of these gahu rhythms. And again, that's amazing work. It makes me also appreciate the drum set for being such a powerful instrument. Again, it's just something that we cannot take for granted. But yeah, I guess my question is, how often does this happen to you, like incorporating the gahu in your music or in a recording session
Yeah,
or
and
a gig? Yeah.
that's a great question. I mean, I think like with most things that I play, the longer I've played, the more I try to avoid ever forcing anything. So it's the sort of thing that I wouldn't say I'm incorporating it when I'm recording or playing live all the time, but it's just another thing to draw from. I hope that I'm never all the time forcing anything that I study. And my gigs vary a ton. I mean, I played a punk rock show last night, and coming up the end of this week, I'm playing a show with two 7-string like gypsy Russian guitarists. So one of the guys is more classical, one of the guys is more gypsy. And it's more percussion. And then I've got a jazz show that I've with a singer I've never worked with next week, and so it's kind of constantly different styles. So it's almost impossible for me to take any. It would be horrible for me to take any like little vocabulary of things that I play and try to just shove them into all of these different situations that I play in. But that said, it does come up quite a bit. Like I mentioned earlier, it could just literally be I take one of the elements from one of these rhythms and sneak it in a percussion part behind a drum set thing I record. Or a while ago I was recording with a band called Dramatica, and they're kind of rock, kind of electronic. It's this mashup of things, and it was super, super fun stuff. And they had a tune where the end of the song they wanted it to just be this percussive, like thick jam going on. And I ended up taking a lot of the actual Eve drums to the studio where we were recording that, and played my drum set part, and then I literally built a gahu ensemble piece by piece afterwards, just to thicken everything up. And I am not, but in any way, shape, or form, suggesting that I'm even playing any of this stuff right. I mean, there are plenty of Ghanaian musicians, who would go like, he's not playing that right. But it's definitely, it's just my interpretation from my studies of these things, and I didn't make any of this stuff up. I have to just credit Ruben and Emmanuel Agbeli and the other drum teachers that I study with in Ghana, because all of those studies just opened my eyes up, like I mentioned earlier, not only to a new style and different ways of playing, but just to the fact that the world is going to be never ending musically for me. So yeah, in some situations like that, I will do my best to kind of take all these elements and replicate them. Not with the intention that I'm necessarily even playing gahu perfectly correctly, because like I said, a lot of people would maybe say that I'm not, but it's just drawing from these elements and finding ways in your music that you're playing, where they might fit in, I think is kind of where it's at for me.
Oh wow.
Oh, thank you for that. Thank you for that. This is amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing stuff. Yeah.
Hey, we have a question
Cool.
in
All right.
Facebook. Yep. So let me just try to read this. This is from Rafi Fragante. So he says, Are there variations to the rhythm of each instrument, or should they only be played as explained earlier to keep everything together?
It's a
Yeah.
great question. Yeah.
Oh, that's a great question. Some of the instruments on some of these rhythms have next to no variation, and they're really, these support parts that are just keep going. But that's not the case with all of them. So, in my experience with Gahu, um, uh, those first couple, so the Gankogwi bell, the Ahachi rattle, the um, Kagan, really didn't change too much at all. And on Gahu, not even so much Kidi as well. But once you start getting to Sogo, that was playing the Vu, De Vu Vu, De Vu Vu, that whole sort of thing, it would start reacting sometimes to some of the master drum signals. So the master drum would send everybody into the next. There's a style or a section of the song or performance that's often called the basic or the free movement, and it's accompanied by a very free flowing dance step that goes along. And the master drum sends this big this big signal that launches everybody into the serious movement, the next section, and that. Sogo rhythm would often change from this 1, 2, and 3, 4, and to more of like a 1E and a 2, and 1E and a 2. And so it would make some sort of transition like this. And that sort of thing would happen just for this one section, for this serious movement. And then once a call came to go back to the basic movement, it would switch back to that basic pattern again. So some of them do react. And on some of the other styles in the Ewe traditional musics, like Achag Beko, which is what we would think of as like a 12/8 style, a lot of things would change. Sometimes the notes, sometimes things even shifted just from being less syncopated to all of a sudden a lot of these styles are played slowly and very fast. So Gahu would often start, a performance of Gahu would often start with this very slow version called Kokosawa, where all these rhythms are just like just very slow and laid back. And that would be played for a while. There'd be a break. There's a little vocal interlude, and then super fast. And this would be happening for the next 12 minutes or something. And Achag Beko, this 12/8 style, same sort of thing. There would often be a very slow version, and the Kidi, for instance, might play a rhythm that's a little bit more syncopated within there. But once it starts going really fast, so it's gang, 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 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, like really cooking, its part would straighten out a little bit, so that, because the more syncopated rhythm gets pretty tricky in there. So yeah, sometimes some of these either will change based on tempo or based on like section of the song and stuff. But again, if our goal is not to necessarily be playing all of these traditionally correctly all the time, we learn them, respect the style, but you do you. When you get into playing your music, like find like something like that Kidi rhythm might be perfect for a track if you made this other tweak to it, or maybe you take those open tones and the muted tones and you actually make those two different instruments. So instead of going ga ga mute mute ga 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 mute mute, maybe you're like, one is a high pitched Coke bottle and the other's a low pitched Coke bottle. You're going ging ging gugum ging ging gugum ging ging gugum. It's like, oh, that's and nobody's gonna listen to that and go, wow, you're playing a Ghanaian Kidi rhythm from Gahu. Like, no, it's like it's not gonna happen. But where you're drawing these influences from, and I think that's the beauty of this. Again, it's just more vocabulary.
That's your moment. That's just your inner moment. Like it's a big thing.
Yeah,
for you. Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's powerful stuff. Yeah.
Let them hear ears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just playing. Thanks for that question, Rafi.
Yeah,
There
and
you have.
studying it in the most basic form of those pattern is really the foundation for you to
Yeah.
master it. So you have to do it
Definitely.
in the
Yeah.
most basic form, the most raw form for you
Yeah.
to expand. Yeah. So
Yep. Exactly. And that, I mean, that's the case with everything we play, right? I mean, it's like learning how to play your double strokes, and like playing paradiddles and being able to do it without an accent on the first note, just to make sure you can control yourself to keep your dynamics level, and then put an accent on the downbeat, and then can you put an accent on the E, like all these things. And yeah, you need to understand it in its basic form, and be good at that, so that you can later musically do other things with it. But you always have the ability to kind of start there and then add other things on.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, these are all
I
inspiring.
know, right? Yeah.
For us.
And I'm wondering how this would apply. I mean, for Philippine rhythms also, like someone would. I think, yeah. There have been drummers also who have been trying to
To incorporate that.
incorporate it
Yeah.
in the drum set, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
interesting.
I think it's
Well,
yeah, I
I'm
think
going
it goes
I'm going to
back
become.
Oh,
Oh sure.
No, go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Go.
You can
Yeah,
stay
I was gonna say I'm gonna
Brian's.
come. I need to study some Filipino drums, so I'm gonna come over, and you all have to
Sure.
hook me up. Yeah, he's like, "Tisa."
Yeah. You're staying at Ryan's. Yeah, we'll set you up definitely. We'll have
For sure.
food, beers. And
I mean, for
drumming.
all that we've interviewed, like from the state side, everyone was like, okay, you should plan all together. Like we do a basic here, Philippine,
Yeah.
That will be nice. Yeah. But yeah, we would love
bring
to
the
have
gang
you.
in.
Yeah, I mean, this is really awesome that you spent
Yeah,
time with us
yeah.
tonight and morning for you. But it would be great if we could have you here, come over and have like an in-person session. That would be
That'd be
really
awesome.
I know.
I'm all for it. We will make this happen. I love that idea.
Yeah.
Satur, hello.
Yeah. I know, right?
President Satur is gonna
Yeah,
be.
you talk to him when he goes to the basic.
Yeah.
Make him
That's a
sign the.
done deal.
I know, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so-
we're going to bring you to some bars here in the Philippines for you to jam.
Excellent.
Yeah. There. International. So, well, before we let you go, Mark. I'm really, it's this. I know this is like what you've thought, like for Gahu, or how you've worked out all these rhythms. And I knew it, like when you were gonna go, okay, here we go, we put it all together. I'm like, this is like months work or something, right? But it's how I like it, how you easily express them when you put them together, and then you can really hear all the melodies coming in. When you're playing it individually, it was like, okay, pieces of the puzzle, and then all of a sudden you get to drop the whole big picture out of it. And like what Tusa was saying about what happens when you have this all in you, and what comes out of you after all, like there, having all those independence worked out, and all those melodies that are running in your head and your ear. So, and I wanted to like take advantage, because we really like the sound also of your kid right now. And I'm really interested in like, if you can, I don't know, maybe like a spontaneous thing, like a quick short, or a short solo where just let it all out, like something like, so we just want to enjoy the sound that you're making. So I don't know if you
Cool.
can
Yeah,
share something
I'll
like
try
that.
to base
That'd be
things off.
cool.
I'll base off.
That'll be
Yeah, I'll
interesting.
base things off a few of these rhythms a little bit.
Yay! Thank you. It's interesting.
This is exciting,
Oh, there you go.
ladies and Mark Powers, ladies and gentlemen.
couple of those rhythms worked in there.
Wow.
Galing.
Grabe. Thank you, Mark. That sounds so good.
Yeah, I love the sound of this kid in here. It's great.
I know, even for us, like, putting this together. So, really, thank you. And then, yeah, any last words before we wrap up? And then,
No, aside just from thank you all for putting this together. I mean, it's fantastic getting to hang out and get to know all of you three a little bit more. And thanks to Satur for kind of making all the connections. And thanks to PAS just for all the connections that are kind of constantly made here. This is great.
wow. Tusa, Carmi, anything?
Carmi?
Go ahead.
Oh,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah, you
I was. I'm
go
sorry.
ahead. Yeah.
Carmi? Ayun.
Hello.
There.
Yeah, just go
There.
ahead.
Okay. Oh, well, I guess what I wanted to say was this has been really amazing. Thank you, Mark Powers, for spending time with us. And maraming salamat din to all those joining us on Facebook. And this is really a fun specialty session. And again, this is anything. Well, Ghana and Ghanaian drumming has always been an awesome, profound thing for me, and Gahu especially. It's one of the first things that we learned from Royal Hartigan, and just seeing how you do it in the drums. This has been an amazing experience tonight for us. So again, thank you very much for that. And I guess if you don't mind my saying it, there's just no greater power than Mark Powers. So,
Mark
there
it.
you go.
Mark.
So thank you for that. Yeah, naubusan na ako, grabe. So, Carmi?
Carmi.
Yo, Mark, thank you so much
Yeah,
for,
go, Mark.
For sharing your knowledge with us. We really appreciate
Yeah.
it. And for waking up so early. It's time check. It's 7:30 a.m. there.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Yeah, thank you
So,
all so much. This is
yeah.
fun.
So I hope to see you someday in person, either here
It
or
will happen.
there. I don't know.
That's
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
we'll make this happen.
Yeah.
And maybe we
Yes.
can
Yes.
take a photo.
Oh, yeah, that's
Um,
right.
Yeah,
How come I forgot about that? Yeah. Let me do
Stick
that.
the
One photo. Okay, ready?
for the road.
For the road. 1, 2, ready, smile. There you go. Got it.
I
got
love it.
it.
Awesome. Well,
Well,
thank you
thank-
all so much. This is great.
I know. Thank you, Mark, so much.
Maraming
For
salamat.
preparing and giving time to us. So again, in behalf of Percussive Art Society Philippines chapter, for our president Satur Tiamson, Isaac
Our officers.
officers,
Yeah,
sorry,
so-
officers, Satur Tiamson, Isaac Dalva, Zara Rivera, yeah, and everyone, putting all this together. We like thank you. This is not gonna happen without these guys also. So for Tusa and Carmi and Mark, woohoo!
Yes.
One clap. There you go.
There you go. Oh, that's a special clap. Yes.
I know, right?
Yeah,
So again, thank you so much till we see each other, face to face.
Right. And
Right.
thank you for those watching. Thank you for staying with
Yeah,
us
yeah,
tonight and spending time with us this weekend. And abangan ang next specialties. We'll stay tuned for announcements. No.
That's right.
So-
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Visit the page. And
Okay,
powerspercussion.com, is that right?
Yes.
Get to
Yes.
visit, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely drop a line. Say hi. Send me a note. Say hi.
There you go. Yeah, anything you want to promote?
Oh yeah.
Music,
Plug
new
in.
music, or
No,
books?
not really. I would say, definitely swing by powerspercussion.com, drop me a line on there, or, Instagram's a great spot too, just at Mark Powers, and
Mark Powers.
catch me on there. Be great to meet some more players over that way.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
So again, thank you so much. So see you
Okay.
then.
Thank you.
Thank you,
See you all
Mark.
later.
All right, thank
And
you.
keep safe. Keep safe.
Keep safe.
Everyone.
That's right.
Thank you.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
felicità. E tutti i tuoi sbagli ripercorri, ma sai gli sbagli sono umani, gli sbagli sono umani. C'è chi vince e chi perde, chi mai giocherà, chi nelle tante menzogne trova la propria verità. Siamo nel baratro, in questo mondo che va giù, dove siamo arrivati, ma sai gli sbagli sono umani, gli sbagli sono umani. Siamo a sentire un alto grido, sentirai. Ci hanno rubato anche sogni in questa insana società. Sempre nel baratro, in questo mondo che va giù. Quanti diavoli, ma sai gli sbagli sono umani, gli sbagli sono umani. Thank you.